Alright, Infernal Blessings, we are back with another video. Alright, before we begin, just a couple quick announcements. First and foremost, the 2025 yearly forecast readings, I've started those. And as I could tell you, it's gotten off to a very, very heavy, fast start out the gate. So if you want to book your 2025 yearly forecast reading, some of you guys have done it the last 4 years now. I think it's going on the 5th year. You know what it's about. It's a yearly, a month-by-month forecast of what you can look forward to and expect in 2025, a helpful reading to prepare so you can be the most successful and accomplish your goals. So if you want to see what the spirits, gods, goddesses, and demons have in store for you in 2025, book your yearly forecast reading right now. At least give me, it could be anywhere from 4 to 7 days out. Currently at the moment, I'm trying to knock some out in the next couple of days. That should go down a little bit, but please be prepared at least 4 to 7 days out to book your reading right now. I do them pretty much till late February. So got pretty much the rest of all of this month, which is still a lot of time left in this month. And you also have all of January and all of February. So book your reading now. Feel free to do that. If you're interested in that type of reading or any of the other type of readings that I do offer, telepathic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, deity readings to see what gods, goddesses, and demons walk with you. Again, not to worship them, but to further and strengthen your connection on the left-hand path in the occult. Maybe you're interested in a shadow work reading, which is a great reading to do if you're looking to see what's some of the most important things that's going on around you currently right now. You know, some people always are looking for a sense of purpose and direction in their work. A shadow work reading is a great reading to do because shadow work is something that is ongoing and continuing, right? Maybe you're just interested in a spiritual consultation, which people use that just to pick my brain and ask a bunch of questions, or maybe they want to focus on something on the path or something in particular, any of the aforementioned. So if you're interested in the 2025 yearly forecast reading or any of the readings or a consultation, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com. Please include the time zone you are in and your full weekly availability, okay? For like what you're available for throughout the week. All right? And we'll make something work. If you want to sign up for classes, as we're getting ready now to prepare the 2025 curriculum for Patreon page, and continue the ongoing classes, and a new class I was supposed to add 2 months ago will be added in January, the Egyptian Hermetic Alchemy class. If you want to see all the classes, the best way to get in on the Patreon and the 3 private classes I do every month, including a group ritual we all do together at the end of the month, go to the Patreon page at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, and look at Tier 3. Tier 3 is the tier you want to join. When you do join Tier 3, it gives you access to everything in the archives, not just from the day you join moving forward, but everything in the archives. And you can also go to the Patreon page and see, when you go to the page, you get to the home page, click the collections section, you'll see it. That will show you all the current ongoing classes with new content being added regularly, all right? So that's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, Tier 3. If you want to take it to the next level and get in on the mentorship program, take a look at Tier 5. But please only do that if you're a serious person that really wants to put the effort, energy, and time in doing the work. All right, so that's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. All right. Also, don't forget to check out the social media pages on Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, all one word. Facebook, Primordial Chaos 2 words. Primordial Chaos 3 on TikTok. That's the best way to stay abreast of everything that's happening here at Primordial Chaos. Classes, announcements, events, and also right here on the YouTube page in the community section, I always post anything of importance there also. So those are the platforms you want to stay up on to stay abreast of what I got going on. And last but not least, don't forget to check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. The direct link to the podcast, to the social media pages, my contact email address, and the direct link to the Patreon page to sign up for classes. All of those links are in the description box of the video that you're watching right now. You see the title of the video. I kind of wanted to piggyback off this. This was some of this that I'm about to talk about was a small fraction of the class that we did, the Eastern Left-Hand Path Occult class last week. And somebody had reached out to me that's a part of the Patreon and said, hey, could you maybe just post that part of the, like, talk a little bit about the subject that you see in the box, description box, maybe do an excerpt from that class. And I think it'd be great learning tool for a lot of people to post it on the, publicly on the YouTube page. So I'm going to take a fraction of what I talked about at that class. We were building on the Catholic priesthood. It came up as we were going through the material for the Patreon class last week. So I'm going to talk to you today to show you that the origin of the Catholic priesthood goes back to the deity Dagon, okay, in ancient Samaria, who you guys will know as a fish deity. He's an ancient Sumerian demigod, as they say. He's an ancient god that you'll see listed in the Sumerian tablets. And this is really where the Catholic priesthood goes back to, and I'm going to show you. Okay, so the origin of the priesthood. The main thing with Catholicism is the ritual of the Catholic Mass. Celebrating and consecrating the Eucharist. The Eucharist is a Greek word for what they call the bread and the consecration of the bread and the body of Christ at the Mass. They call it consecrating the Eucharist. But the actual act of consecrating the Eucharist that you can find in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, I want to be clear on this. That is a book you really need to get to understand the laws, the canon of the church, the laws, the traditions, because I'm going to show you something. The so-called Jews of today, the so-called Muslims of today, and the original Christians here in the West, which is the Roman Catholic Church, which obviously is a branch off from the Eastern Orthodox Church, and that's why there's a close connection to the two. But the Eastern Orthodox liturgy is more rooted in the essence of what real Christianity is about. Their rituals, their practices, a bit different, but Catholicism in the West piggybacked off that in Europe, and then obviously here in America we get that same branch of Catholicism. And all the other sects, and this is going to be a quick tutorial, there's a lot more to this, so I'm just going to run through this quick. All the other sects of what we're calling the Christian religion branched out from Catholicism here in the West. Roman Catholicism, which they don't use that term no more. You don't hear a lot of Catholics say, I'm a Roman Catholic. See, that's what they used to say back in the day. I grew up a Roman Catholic when I was a child and a teenager, and when I left and really stopped dealing with it when I was about 13, 14 years old. But I went to Catholic school for 8 years. It was always referred to as the Roman Catholic Church. You don't hear people call themselves Roman Catholic anymore. They just say they're Catholic. The word Catholic, as you know, is the Greek word for universal. So when they say in the Catholic Church, they believe that that is the universal church. It's important to understand these titles and definitions because it gives you clarity on their perspective of what they think that they're propagating, right? Very important. But you'll see the Catholics have their book that they really go by more so than the scriptures or the Bible. Remember, the Catholic Church uses their translation of the Bible, the New American Bible, which includes the Apocrypha, which is 72 books. There's 6 additional books added to the 66 books that's basically used in the King James Version of the Bible. And as we know, the different councils over the years came together to determine what books, Gospels would be left in, what would be left out. We know later, in addition, you add the finding of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the caves of Qumran. I believe they were found and uncovered in 1947, I believe. I might have that date wrong. But anyway, these councils got together and men made the decision of what was in line with their ideology. So the Catholic Church uses the New American Bible. It's translated by the Catholic Church Fathers. It's in more simplified English. It's not in the classical English. But rather than them follow their scriptures, they more so follow a book again, that the church fathers and the church hierarchy wrote, called the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's funny because the Masonic Lodge has called the Catechism of the Masonic Degrees, right? We use that same term, the ritualistic aspect of it in the Masonic Lodge. And as I told you guys before in the past, the Catholic Church has their own fraternal order called the Knights of Columbus, which has basically formatted their 3 degrees on the Knights of Columbus after the 3 degrees of Freemasonry. And then they have higher degrees after that. You can get knighted, go up to the 4th degree and above. And then they also have a order that's similar, that goes beyond that, that's higher than that, like the Shriners, okay? Where they wear fezzes, the whole nine. The Pope has always been inducted as an honorary member of their shrine temples. It's basically the Catholic version of the Shriners. So they have their own Masonic order and their own Shriner order, but their catechism speaks out against being a Mason or any form of Shriner, etc. It's against the laws of the Catholic Church. Very, very hypocritical and contradictory. That's number one. I didn't plan on throwing all this stuff in here, but it's just coming as I'm talking so you can get an overall big picture. So they basically follow each Catholic when they go to Rite of Christian Initiation, RCIA, which every Catholic has to go through to become a fully baptized Catholic and receive all the major sacraments, baptism, penance or confession, Holy Communion, confirmation, if you decide marriage or holy orders, depending on which route you go in life, and anointing of the sick, right? So there's a whole, and notice they know the educational program to become a Catholic is called the Rite of Christian Initiation. Again, there's that ritualistic term. It's called RCIA. Catholics know what I'm talking about. Non-Catholics might not. The Catholic Church is very structured. It has its rules. It's got its bylaws. There's a whole structure to follow. It's a lot. But the Catechism of the Catholic Church is a thick-ass book. It almost looks like a dictionary or encyclopedia. And it's all the laws of the church, the do's and the don'ts, what you can't do, what you can do. You're going to find the structure of the church is based more on the Catechism of the Catholic Church than it is the Bible. You look at the Jews of today, they have a book, a traditional book, similar like the Catechism of the Catholic Church, called the Talmud, right? And some people are very ignorant. They think the Talmud and the Torah are the same thing. They are not. So in the Jewish religion, they believe, the modern day Jew believes, why Moses was on top of Mount Sinai receiving the Torah or the laws or the covenant. You know, they say the 10 commandments. It was 613 commandments, not 10. That there were elders at the bottom of the mountain receiving the oral law, which they believe in their tradition is the Talmud. And again, more so than the Torah, they follow a lot of more of the traditions in the Talmud. Then you have your modern day Muslim, I should say Muslim, because they're not really Muslims, because they mistranslate that word, and I talked about that many times. Okay, the word that they constantly are mistranslating, and it's very poor, I'll tell you that, and I want to be honest with you. They say the word Muslim means one who submits. It does not. Okay? The word Muslim means one of peace. The word mu in Arabic is one, and then salam. If you look up the word, they'll tell you from a religious definition, it means one who submits. But then they'll tell you the root word that's not the correct root word. It is actually one of peace. But a lot of these Arabs that convert, a lot of American converts to Muslim will lie to them and tell them the word Muslim means one who submits. It does not. It means one of peace. It's different of one who is of peace than one who submits, because then the next question is submit to who and what? They say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we're back to that religious dogma, no different when a Christian or a Jew submits to the biblical God. That's a whole nother story. So they follow more, and they're probably more so guilty of it than the Catholics and the Catechism of the Catholic Church and the Jews and the Talmud. They're just as guilty or more. They follow more books called Sunnah. There's many books written by so-called Islamic scholars that are referred to as the Sunnah and tradition of Islam. And a lot of the Sunnah is not in alignment with the Quran. They'll try to pretend it is. And there's some really, like in the Talmud and in the Hadiths, That's what they say is Sunnah or tradition. These books are called the Hadith, tales of men, right? And there's a lot of things in the Sunnah of the Hadith that do not align with the Quran, but these so-called Islamic scholars will promote this ridiculousness, like you can marry, basically condones being a pedophile. It condones grown-ass men taking small little children for their wives. The Talmud has sick shit in there, like it basically belittles woman, like you have to cut a hole in a sheet to have sex with your woman when she's in an unclean state. Oh, that's crazy, stupid, pointless shit. So I'm trying to show you Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Don't be fooled. These major world religions don't really follow the Bible and the Quran. They follow these traditional books written by men. And this is how men are able to keep power and keep the masses controlled, because they get caught up in this foolishness, okay? So, when you go into the Bible, back to the origin of the Catholic priesthood, I had to put that out there because I want people to see the overall big picture of this, okay? So, when you get into the Catholic priesthood, now the origin, and then from a ritualistic part, back to the Catholic Mass, as I was talking about the Eucharist, they believe at the Mass, okay, or the Missa in Old Latin, right, that they consecrate the bread and wine, and it's turned into literally into the body and blood of Christ. In the Catechism and in your rite of Christian initiation, you have to really study this, understand it, and literally accept it as you're a practicing Catholic at Mass. And this is very ritualistic, okay? And there's a lot of sects of Christianity that offer the act of communion in their services. Lutherans do it, Episcopalians do it, and other sects and non-denominations do it, right? And where does it stem from? Let's start from modern day and let's bring it back. Where does this bread and wine thing come from? And the process of that being done in the Mass and the Catechism, or what the Church refers to it as transubstantiation. You have to learn this as a Catholic. And that's literally accepting that when the Mass and the Eucharist, the bread and the wine is being consecrated, it's literally the bread is turned into the body of Christ, and the blood is turned, and the wine is turned into the blood of Christ. You literally must embrace that. That is very ritualistic in nature. It's magic. It's how we perform magic. It's going into your subjective consciousness and carrying out something subjective and bringing it into your objective realm. Very ritualistic in nature. Okay? Number one. So you believe that, and you have to accept as a practicing Catholic that now this is the body and blood of Christ. Then you come up after the Eucharist is consecrated and you receive the body and blood of Christ. And the priest says the blood of Christ, the body of Christ. And to show you that this priesthood, you see this also reenacted. Jesus did this in the upper room, the Last Supper. Again, this bread and wine is used symbolically and presented ritualistically as his body and blood at the Last Supper in the upper room. Where does that come from? Well, if you go into the book of Hebrews, which people get mystified, Hebrews chapter 5 and 7, it talks about Christ not glorifying himself and being a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Now, there's going to be a lot of difference of opinion and debate on who Melchizedek is. Jehovah's Witnesses will say that this is Jesus. It's the same thing. I've heard people say it's the angel Michael, which is more accurate. But long story short, you're going to get a difference of opinion on who Melchizedek is. But if you study the scriptures with common sense, it's definitely not Jesus. There's a clear separation. Now the question would be, who is Melchizedek? This is all going to give clarity on the bread and the wine, the Mass, the upper room, the Last Supper, and where this tradition comes from. To show you, they have this ritual ingrained, and it starts way back in Genesis chapter 14, verse 18. When Abraham was coming back from the slaughter, it says he presented a tenth of everything he had, and he offered bread and wine to the king of Salem, or Salam, the king of peace, Melchizedek. Now, this tenth is where they get tithing from. It's mentioned also in Hebrews. But then modern day Christians will say that Jesus' death abolished the law. We don't follow Old Testament law. Then, why are we still tithing in the churches? And Jesus also said God don't dwell in houses made by man's hands. Then why are we building physical structures? And then people say, well, no, that's not what... Yes, we know what it means. Okay, it's convenient to switch things around when it's convenient for you. Anyway, outside of that, we see this Melchizedek. We see a tenth was offered to him, and bread and wine was offered to him as a gesture of reverence. We see this Melchizedek pop up in Daniel. We see him pop up in Psalms chapter 110, right? And we see him pop up way in the New Testament in Hebrews chapter 5 and 7. It says he is the Ancient of Days, no beginning, no end, no mother, no father, right? And if you look at an old school Catholic priest, like I've told you guys before, when they're consecrating the Eucharist, the bread and the wine, like the old Levites did in the Levitical temples, when they were attending to the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies, when they would sacrifice or offer blood on the altar, they were commanded to offer it to all four corners of the altar. North, south, east, and west. The front of it, the back of it, the left, and the right. And you'll watch an old school priest will take either the bread and the wine, and he'll tilt it forward towards him, left, right. Reenacting that same exact practice that the ancient Levitical priesthood did in the Holy of Holies. Okay? And this again, so we see its origin from Melchizedek, through the Levitical priesthood, right, on up until we get, fast forward now, and because I'm doing this fast, up until what we call the story in the upper room at the Last Supper. And then this tradition / ritual is carried on in what they call the practice in the Holy Mass in the Catholic Church. And it's a ritual that's done over and over. And as we know in magic, the more you get people in alignment with something ritualistically, and they do it repetitively, it reprograms the subconscious mind. That could be a good or a bad thing, and it creates an egregore. It's like a strong current or energy amongst a group of people. And this is why they've become so powerful, because people don't realize they're becoming a part of that egregore, okay? Whether they're conscious of it or not. And the Catholic Church is able to draw upon the power of it. And I can get into so much more stuff with that, but I kind of want to focus on the subject and make sure I finish this topic. Now, where does the connection with Dagon tie in? As we know, as the Catholic Church formulated its doctrine, they were part, the Greeks and Romans were part of responsible. They were very responsible for raiding the libraries of Alexandria in Egypt and bringing back a lot of the doctrine from Egypt with them. And this is why you also get Catholic or the holistic Catholic, right? When you actually flip the words. And we know the great cat was something that was connected to the libraries of Alexandria in Egypt, which was the Sphinx, right? Because when Mark Antony and Caesar and during that time and the whole thing with Cleopatra, right? This is how they were able to connect and integrate themselves into Egypt and bring a lot of that knowledge back into Rome and into Greece. And then they came up with these traditions mixed in with Egyptian, Babylonian, right? And of course, Roman mythology. And hence they came up with something called the Roman Catholic Church. They needed to come up with a doctrine or a religion that would keep the pagans happy, but also cater to the Christians. So hence again, we have the Roman Catholic Church, an infusion of paganistic beliefs, mythology, ancient Egyptian and Babylonian origins, and then mixed in with Christian theology. Okay? I mean, I'm giving you the quick rundown. There's so much more in between I could talk about, but I'd be here for hours doing it. All right? So now their priesthood, we go even further because of their connection. They incorporate a lot of ancient Sumerian and Babylonian beliefs. This is why we find gods in the Bible like Baal-Hadad, right? We find gods, Sumerian names, the god Baal, the god El. We find Canaanite gods that we can trace back. We go to Abraham's father, Terah, or Terah, however you want to pronounce it, who was an ancient Chaldean. Abraham, remember his name was Abram before it was Abraham, father of many nations, because he was an ancient Chaldean. Right? I can get into so much more. I wish I had time. I would kind of get a little more thorough with it, so I'm giving you the fast rundown. Okay? So they believe they connected their priesthood further back, right? Because in ancient Babylonia, Samaria, you also have a deity called Marduk, who some believe in ancient occult circles and in the ancient mysteries that Marduk is synchronized with the character mentioned in the Bible, Melchizedek. So Marduk even took them further back to an ancient god who would be referred to as a chief or a high god in the ancient Sumerian culture called Dagon. You'll see it spelled two ways, D-A-G-O-N or D-A-G-A-N sometimes. And when you pull up or you research Dagon, you'll see he is referred to the fish god because he looks like a male mermaid. He has the body, lower part body of a fish, okay? And then he has the upper body and head of a man. He's a man fish god. Keep that in mind now. If you look at a fish, then when you go to show you their allegiance to Dagon, look at the ritual dress of the high-ranking priesthood in the Catholic Church. When you look at the bishops, the cardinals, and the popes, who are the three in that order, Pope, cardinals, and bishop in that order as far as hierarchy, look at the hat that they all wear. It's called the mitre, M-I-T-R-E. And if you look at the mitre that the bishop, the cardinals, and the pope wear, it's basically the tail of a fish if you look at it. That's all it is. And it has the two tails that hang down on the side. And look at the hat that Dagon wears, and then look at how it looks like a fish tail, like the bottom portion of his body. It's to honor their high god that they worship called Dagon. Okay? So that is a mitre, M-I-T-R-E, right? And it's nothing but the tail of a fish. And only when you get to a certain rank in the priesthood are you able to wear that hat. Not everybody can wear that hat. Again, bishops, cardinals, and popes. Okay? That sacred order that I couldn't think of the name at the moment, that's like a Shriner order in the Catholic Church. It's called the Alhambra. Go look at it. It's nothing but the Catholics' version of the Shriner order. They have the Knights of Columbus. I'm sorry, a lot of shit running through my head as I'm building. The Knights of Columbus is their Masonic order, and the Alhambra is their Shriner order. It's no different. Go look. I'm telling you because I went as high as you can go in the Knights of Columbus. I never did the Alhambra. I did, obviously, the Shriner later on because I went back into the Catholic Church and I had to bring all my documents. This is early 2000s because I wanted to go through the Knights of Columbus and as high as I could just to get the experience because I had the documents. I actually called, believe it or not, got copies from the school I went to, requested copies in the mail that I received all my sacraments because you can't go through the Knights of Columbus order if you haven't, got all your major sacraments as a Catholic. So I went and retrieved all this shit years later, just so in the early, I think it was 2002 I did it, 2001 or 2. I went as high as you can go in the Knights of Columbus. I went 4th degree knight, the whole nine, because I wanted the experience. I wanted to learn. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, that mitre goes back, in essence, Melchizedek, the priesthood, everything that I was just building you with, it was to get you to see that's who it connects to, their deity Dagon. That's their most high god. Look at their ritual dress. Go look at Dagon. Look at the hat. Look at the bottom of Dagon. Look at his headpiece with the two tails hanging. If you look on the mitre, they have the two straps in the back. Don't think that shit is all by chance. That's all designed specifically for a reason. The ancient Egyptian connection, you look at the Black Madonna and Child that's in the Vatican, they worship a Black Madonna and Child and they don't hide it because they know this connects back to ancient Samaria. It goes back to Northeast, Egypt, Africa, and they never went in denial about it from the get-go, regardless of the imagery you see here in the West of all of these European images of Christ and the prophets. And as I told you guys before, that shit you see on them stained glass windows, I asked the priest about that several times. Where do they come up with these images when you go into a Catholic church and they got the apostles looking like this? And the priest literally told me, the artists that paint those stained glass windows, they put faces to people they know, family members, friends, etc. Those are literal people that they know. And I'm just like, wow, it's that fucking simple. But people get so caught up in that, they don't really take the time out to simulate that. What's that really all about? That's all it's about. Okay? So do your research and you will find out everything that I just ran through. And again, there's a lot more I wish I could add to it, but this is not the format for it. I wish I can go a little more in depth. So this is a just quick, fast tutorial. Again, if you really are interested in this type of information, this is the stuff we talk about in the Eastern Left-Hand Path Occult class, the Esoterical Occult Bible Study class. This is what I teach, the students that take these classes so they can look at the Bible and the Quran from an esoterical perspective, how it was meant to look at, because it's an occult book. And as I've said before, I don't have a problem with the Bible or the Quran. I have the problem when it's interpreted and translated for religious purposes by men who establish these religions, okay? So I want to make that clear, and that's the purpose of doing the class, to give clarification on that, all right? So I just wanted to the best of my ability, in the short amount of time I had, I know this video went a little longer than some of the other ones. We're a little bit over 30 minutes now. Try to keep them to a max of 20 to 30 minutes. I just thought this would be an interesting topic to talk about. Shout out to the brother that encouraged me to do an excerpt of this for the YouTube page. I thought it was a good idea, because I know there's a lot of people who might want some clarity on, maybe you were a Catholic, a Christian, and maybe you saw some of this stuff and maybe you didn't know how to piece it together. So I want you to see the esoterical occult perspective of it. Trust me, when you do the research, you will see everything I'm talking about, regardless how it might sound crazy to some. Some will be in denial about it. Some will think that shit he's talking about sounds crazy. That's because their mind is closed, and more than likely they're engulfed in that crap. All right. But anyway, check it out for yourself. Hopefully this video helped. Again, if you need to reach out to me for a spiritual reading or a consultation, you want to book your 2025 yearly forecast reading, do it now. Shoot me an email. If you want to check out the social media pages, the podcast, or if you need a direct link to the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes, all those links are in this description box of this video you're watching now if you need that information. Hope this video helped. Infernal blessings. We will talk soon. See you on the next video.